Welcome, welcome, everybody. Okay, welcome to another Community Fit, and in particular, a Adjusting to Change Toolkit class. I'm going to be your host, James, and super happy to have you here. Can we get a little show of hands, a little emoji, if this is anyone's first time in an Adjusting to Change Toolkit class? So we got one hands up there. Cool. Anyone else? We got one. Great. So we got a couple of folks. Welcome. We're going to catch you up, right? So Adjusting to Change Toolkit, our Friday classes are all about nervous system resilience, nervous system regulation, and in particular, adjusting to change. And this series in particular, is all about holiday stressors. So as we go through, just know that all of the stuff we're doing is not necessarily just about holiday stuff. That's just the context. That's the framing we're giving it for this go around, because here we are. Here we are in this season of the year. This is our second class. And the class last week was all on mindfulness, because mindfulness is sort of the key that unlocks everything. We're going to do a little review on that to catch up the new folks, but we're going to dive into the toolkit work this week. And so what is the toolkit? Well, the toolkit is all based on somatic practices, and it comes from several different lineages of somatic therapy. What is somatic therapy? Somatic therapy, use your words, James, is it's a frame of reference. It is a therapeutic process that is based within the body. And what we do in somatic therapy is capitalize on natural reflexes, natural responses, natural processes, things your body does all the time, anyways, whenever you're feeling stressed, excited, overwhelmed, uh, nervous system depressed, so on and so forth, and turning them into practices that you can do anywhere, anytime, to re-regulate your nervous system, to bring you down out of the highs, to bring you up out of the lows, and really over time build up capacity. And I teach it in like 5 buckets, and that's sort of what the toolkit is. So that's where we're going to go today. And if this is your first time, if you have been studying with me in this work for a while, great. We're going to have a refresher. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. And if you're brand new to this work, this is probably the most meat on the bones of all of the classes that are contained within this course that we call ACT program, Adjusting to Change Toolkit. So let's revisit what we covered last week. Last week, we talked about mindfulness. And remember, mindfulness can be talked about in a lot of different ways, but the way we explore it in this program in particular comes from the work of Dr. Ellen Langer, or the mother of mindfulness, Harvard professor. So it's got a little bit of an empirical science perspective to it. There's no right or wrong way to study mindfulness. That's just the way that makes sense in my head and is usually most easily translated. So the language around mindfulness is really all about mindfulness as the ability and awareness around context and variability. Context being what's happening inside of me and how is that being influenced or correlatory to what's going on outside of me. Meaning, how's my nervous system? What is my body going through? What is my thought process in the moment? What is the vibe of the moment? How am I feeling about the moment, the current experience I'm having? And what is the current experience I'm having? What room am I in? What time of day is it? What am I doing? Who is with me or not with me? So on and so forth. So that's context, what's going on inside of me and what's going on outside of me. Variability, the ability to notice that things change with time, that experiences are transient, meaning they have ability to shift and change from time of day, dependent on who is with me, dependent on what I'm doing. So how I am, how I feel in a room depends on what am I doing in the room and who's with me and are the lights on, are there windows open, so on and so forth. And How I feel inside is dependent upon what's going on outside of me. And what's going on outside of me, how other people are responding to me, how productive I am, how emotionally intelligent I am, how connectable I am, really has a lot to do with how I'm feeling on the inside. So, context, what's going on, variability, shifting and changing. Now, why is that important? Well, it's quite literally the point of all of this. The ability to notice that things can change in the moment, specifically if I do a practice, right? If I regulate my nervous system, my experience is going to change. Also, if my experience can't change, specifically, let's talk about it in frame of um, seasonality and where we're at with this time of year. Let's say I have to go to the family function, and I know that relative is going to be there, and especially there might be political conversations, there might be pop culture conversations, there might be weather conversations that are triggering to me, but I want to be there. So it's a situation that cannot be changed. How do I build up capacity and resilience inside of me to to deal with and to navigate whatever it is, right? And so the toolkit is going to allow us access to do some simple practices to change how my experience, your experience in the moment. And over time, if I keep practicing these things, it builds up fortitude and resilience so that I can navigate, cope, metabolize, or just be present with the things that I can't change. And so there's a lot with these toolkit exercises. Done as a one off, I call them like triage exercises. Triage exercises to shift anything that I can shift. And over time, they are capacity builders, meaning my bucket is bigger. I can deal with more. I can hold space for more. And by that, I mean the things I'm feeling inside, right? Because often what we're feeling inside, our reaction to the world going on around us, is the thing that's actually causing us more suffering than what is going on around us. And so by building up the capacity, I can hold space for more and I can be present with more. It's kind of hard to explain, right? That's sort of the mysticism of all of this. But just know that these exercises have like a twofer thing. They're good for triaging, self-regulation in the moment, and done over time. Repeated, putting your reps in, practicing, making habits and shifting behaviors around these things makes you more resilient, have more capacity, a bigger space to hold what is. So, mindfulness is sort of the key for everything. Why? Because when I teach the toolkit exercises, I can't tell you what is going to manage, what is going to make better your nervous system, because you are a unique human being with unique nervous system structure that has a unique background that has primed and shaded in, colored, nurtured your specific nervous system to need and want certain things and to resist certain things. So, as a disclaimer, if you ever hear nervous system work, stress work, resilience work, and someone says, this is the thing that is going to make you better, I promise this is the thing that will make you better, there should be an alarm that goes off that goes, no one knows the thing that makes all of us better. What I can offer you is options, choices, a library of a toolkit that I break out into 5 buckets. And you have to pick and choose which ones work for me, which ones don't. And that might shift and change throughout our experience together, meaning today, meaning over the next few weeks, or over time. You don't need the same thing on a Monday that you need on a Wednesday, right? You don't always crave Mexican food. Sometimes you want Mediterranean food. Sometimes you just want a hamburger. Sometimes you want water. Sometimes you want coffee. And all of those have places. So these exercises are like little nutrients. You have to learn to discern which nutrients do you need in the moment. How do you do that? Mindfulness. Mindfulness of noticing, how are these practices impacting me? Do I like the way I feel after I've done them? Context. This is the way I feel. I do the practice. How do I feel after that? Context one, there's an intervention, the exercise. Context number two, do I like the way that feels? If so, the variability has shifted in a good way. I like the way I feel. If it makes you feel worse, then know that that's not the practice for you today. So, as we explore and play today, I just invite you to notice, what is your experience with the practice? Do you like the way it's shifting your experience, meaning your heart rate, meaning your breath, meaning the vibe of the moment? So, here's how we're going to start today. Last week, when we practiced mindfulness, we did it in a few different ways, and that is an option. So, to review, the way we practice mindfulness is number one, to pay attention to your breath. Are you breathing normally? Do you enjoy the way you're breathing? Are you breathing through your nose or through your mouth? Is it a fast? Is it a slow breath? Are you forgetting to breathe? And just paying attention to that. You might also pay attention to your heart. Is my heart beating fast? Is it beating slow? Am I not able to even sense the way my heart is beating? And physical tension. Do I feel tense and tight, like I'm mobilizing and defending against something? Or am I yielding, relaxing into the chair, onto the couch, into the position you're in? That you may notice. That's in the body noticing. Or I want to introduce you to a different thing today. You may also practice mindfulness coupled with these toolkit exercises in this way. You can just generally notice your body. You can just notice maybe somewhere that feels good or not good. You might just notice the quality of your physical body. Do you enjoy the way the physical body is feeling right now? And what about it do you like or not like? You may also notice your cognitive body, the thought process, meaning do you have racing thoughts that are kind of all over the place? Are you perseverating, meaning worried about something? Like, I can't let the thought of having to do this next project or having to do this next thing. Again, if we're going to place this in context of holiday time, and keep perseverating around having to see these people or having to buy gifts or having to cook all of this stuff or having a lot of the extra things to do. Could be any number of those. Or the emotional body, meaning I just generally don't like the way I feel. I feel in fear. I feel depressed. I feel anxious. I feel yucky. Or I feel really good. I feel really excited. I feel like I'm looking forward to something. So you can notice the noticing, the awareness of context can happen deeply in the body, noticing breath, the heart, physical tension, or somewhere that you just generally like or don't like. It can also happen in the cognitive body, the thoughts, the words, the way you're talking to yourself, or the emotional body, your feelings, the vibe of the moment. None of them are right because none of them are wrong. It's simply a way to notice. So I want you to notice your current experience, something along the lines that we just talked about. We're going to use that as a benchmarker. And then as we do these practices, you'll have an opportunity to check back in and go, oh, that thing changed my experience in this way. You should probably remember those things as things to practice again. If you're like, I don't like this thing, this is not for me, that practice made me feel worse, then I would categorize that as that's an exercise, a practice that I probably shouldn't do, at least not right now. And maybe you throw the baby out with the bathwater and just forget it altogether. Or maybe you categorize it as it's not for me right now, but I can go back to this with James in a future experiment here or on my own. So that's going to be mindfulness. And here we go with the toolkit. So again, the toolkit is a simplified way for me to introduce you to some of these body-based somatic practices. There are literally thousands and thousands of somatic practices that you can do. So many. We will never have time to get through all of them. We have so many of them listed on our YouTube and even previous experiments here, previous classes and courses, engagements, experiences done through CommunityFIT in a simple YouTube, Google search, Instagram search, Reddit search. whatever, will give you so many more. Here's how I think about them. I think of all of the somatic practices you could possibly do as living within 5 buckets. The first bucket is going to be breath work. And so breath work is a humongous category. If I polled you right now, I'm sure at least one or two or a lot of you would go, I have these breathing exercises that I know to do, that I do. Maybe you learned them in yoga, maybe you learned them in therapy, maybe you learned them from a doctor, maybe you learned them from TV. Like we just know these things. Here's the thing with a breathing exercise, one particular breathing exercise. I can give that particular breathwork exercise to all of you. And I'm looking right now, there are 30 of us on here. 15 of you would find it, amazing. It would shift your experience to having a nervous system thumbs up experience, meaning you like it. The other 15 of you would either have a neutral to a thumbs down nervous system experience, meaning you don't like it. So who's right and who's wrong? Is it the breathing exercise? Is it you? Is it like, it's just what is. So when we think of it as a bucket, you can experiment with different breathing exercises to find which one may or may not work for you. Because it's not that breathing gives you a thumbs down, right? Breathing in all of its shapes and forms is part of life, and it's part of how to revitalize your nervous system. It just might be that one particular practice. So I'm going to share with you 2 options here. Number one option is going to be just an exaggerated exhalation. So normal human being inhale followed by an exaggerated exhalation. So together, regular human being inhale, exaggerate your exhale. You can go in through the nose, out through the mouth, all the better, but make it work for you. Let's try 2 more. Regular human being inhale, long, exaggerated, prolonged exhalation. 2 more. One more. Prolonging the exhalation tells your nervous system that there is time to prioritize exhalation. And prioritizing exhalation is a cue for your body to downregulate, to relax, to settle a bit. So a way of capitalizing on a natural breathing process, exhalation, and using it as a movement language, a somatic language to cue your nervous system to settle. It's just an exaggerated exhale. So option number one that lives in the breathwork bucket. Option number two is one of my personal favorites. And if you've taken anything with me, you know this one. It is the physiological sigh. The physiological sigh is something you do and I do and we all do naturally every 3 to 5 minutes, whether we are awake or we are asleep. Stanford has a lab dedicated to it. UCLA has a lab dedicated to it. And it is a natural phenomenon that has a lot of bang for your buck. It actually recalibrates oxygen and CO2 in the body to relax and regulate your nervous system. Here's what it looks and sounds like. It's a double inhale followed by a single exaggerated exhalation. Typically, the first inhale is bigger. Second inhale is like a full breath. Exhale, 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 exhale. I'm going to demonstrate it once, and together we're going to do it 3 times. So it's going to look and sound like this. Double inhale, single exhale, together 3 times. More. And now do a check-in. Notice something in your body, physical body, cognitive body, energetic, emotional body, something you noticed before, and has it shifted and changed since the context has shifted and changed? Again, context here is an exercise, a practice, a breath work. We introduced something new into the experience. Context has changed. There's potential for variability here. Some of you, I'm sure, are like, oh, I really like that. You should remember that. You should do it more often. Some of you are probably like, absolutely not, not for me. Do not like to prioritize my breath work. And there's nothing right or wrong about that. It's just your experience. So bucket number one in the toolkit, tool number one is breathwork. Tool number two is sensory foraging, or what we would call here an orientation practice. 70% of us are visual creatures, so we're going to start with visual orientation, and then we'll also introduce like an auditory orientation. Orientation is simply beginning to look around your space. So everyone, start to just look around your space. Last week, we covered a bit of this to talk about nervous system work here about, oh, I feel angst, you feel a little, you need some anchoring in your body. Orientation is really good for that. So looking around your space, slow down a bit, almost like you're receiving your space. You don't need to stare, you don't need to dart and look around. Your eyes are actually passively receiving what's in the room. And so just kind of slow down and just notice what's above you, below you, behind you, to the right and to the left. And maybe you even begin to objectively, in your own mind, name the things in the space. Objective noticing would sound like there's a window and a plant and a closet with clothes, and there's a door and a wall and a mirror and another plant and a camera here and a computer here. It's noticing things in the way that literally anyone else in the world would be able to notice versus subjective noticing, which is thing that is out of place, desk that needs cleaning, plant that needs watering, right? It's not needing to qualify anything. It's just noticing. And maybe you even prioritize noticing the things that bring you a little joy. Maybe it's your favorite photo. Maybe it's a dog or cat in the room, a person in the room, something your mom or your grandma made for you, your favorite piece of art or a favorite book or your favorite plant outside. You're just noticing what's in the space. We can also close our eyes and do orientation through sound. You can notice what sounds do you hear in the space. Maybe what sound is closest to you? Here it would be the sound of like the fan spinning. I like movement in the air. My dog just did a sigh. I can notice that. You can hear the TV on in another room. You're just hearing, centering yourself in these sensory experiences. I find this practice especially helpful if I'm in a tough conversation with someone, right? Like I can be present in the conversation and I can also just begin to look around a little bit and then I can come back. It just looks like, oh, I'm thinking for a moment, right? It's very different than being like distracted, right? It's just, oh, and then I'm back here. Can also do some sensory foraging by allowing myself to sense into the chair around me, feeling a little more supported by the chair. And check in with your nervous system, check in with your body, cognitive body, physical body, whatever it is. Does your body, do you like the experience of orientation? Now you have two different options, breathwork bucket or tool, orientation bucket or tool set. Which one works better for you, right? Now you have choice. There are options. The next category, tool set, would be therapeutic touch. Touch is like one of the first things we want when we're born, and it's one of the last things we hope for before we leave. the earth, right? So how do we do it? We bring our hands together. Again, so many options and choices for therapeutic touch. Bring those warm hands, place them onto your jaw, your throat area, maybe your chest or your belly, right? None of those are the right areas. They're just areas that carry more sensory reception to touch. If you think about it, if you receive shocking news, we do this, right? This. Protect ourselves here. Protect ourselves here, right? These are areas that we are inclined to just organically hold and touch, right? So again, I'm in a tough conversation. I'm in a tough situation. I'm going through a change of some sort. I can just be here and it just like no one notices these things. These are tools for me. These are tools for you. Difficult political conversation with that one aunt across the dinner table. Just here, right? Just kind of being here, right? Going to that office, going to the spouse's office party, need a little resourcing, just here, just breathing, just being with this. Touch can also look like tapping, maybe tapping, taking yourself into another room, doing a little tap on the chest. Option 3, right? Breath work, orientation or sensory foraging, and touch. Which category works best for you today? How would you ever know? Well, mindfulness. You got to check back in. The next category is going to be movement. And typically, when we're thinking nervous system regulation or movement in general, we're thinking big movement. We're thinking exercise. We're thinking go for a walk. We're thinking dancing. We're thinking lifting weights or sprinting or long distance running or any of the things, thinking yoga and Pilates and all of those things. All of that is 100% accurate, right? So much research on how movement helps metabolize and move through stress. Nothing wrong with that. But what about those moments where you can't pick yourself up and go for a run? What if you like physically can't lift the weights or whatever it is? It's not the only option. That is one category of movement that is amazing. I think maybe more important here is like subtle movement. Just allowing your body to remember that it's alive, that there's some aliveness to it in a really subtle fashion. So here's an option for that. Just begin to bilaterally sway. It's a fancy term for meaning rock right and left. Now, I have the luxury of being here on camera, right? So I can do this, and it looks real stiff, right? It looks like the spine isn't moving at all, and it's relatively big. But if I just allowed and considered and got really aware of each little vertebra having movement from the top of the neck all the way down to the tailbone, and maybe I even begin to play with, can I still feel inside of my own experience like I'm rocking, bilaterally swaying left and right, but do it in a way that is so small, maybe it's really difficult for you to notice. I feel it, but it's not big. This is great, like standing in line at a busy grocery store exercise. This is standing around exercise, just swaying. I could even do a rocking back and forth a bit. Another great subtle movement is allowing your like an anxious foot exercise, right? Like letting your foot kind of jiggle, jitter, get a little restless, get a little movement to it. It's actually really beneficial to just allow those subtle movements to happen. Shakes, tremors, rocking, actions. Now you got 4 choices. Are you more of a breathwork person, an orientation person, a movement person, a touch person? The last category is going to be vocalizations. So simple, and it's actually one of the hardest ones to allow ourselves to do. So simple would be sighing. And it's different than the physiological sigh. It's not a breathing exercise. It's quite literally making sound. Or a hum. And then do a check-in. Which ones worked really well for you? Which ones didn't? Which ones are you going to commit to practicing, and when and where will you practice it? Right? Getting real specific about that habit formation. But that's the toolkit: breathing exercises, orientation or sensory foraging, therapeutic touch, movement, and vocalizations. Pretty much every somatic exercise there is fits into those categories. So hopefully I gave you enough to kind of play with. I'll stick around for whatever questions you might have, and please join us again next week for even more practices. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll stick around for whatever you got. Cool. Looks like no question. So thank you so much. Raymond, have a wonderful weekend. Bob. Hey, Bob, come over here. Well,
You
here, I'll
too,
take you to
sir.
Bob. We got Bob right over there. He's getting real lazy about these work days. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you.